Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. So I wanted to talk about one of the niche cases I was touching upon for Evanescence. Essentially, let's say you're in Coda 4, you're doing a little bit of grinding. You're over here, you're getting ready to go do all of your let's say your Knight Commander weapon grinding and stuff like that. So I wanted to talk about the use case for Evanescence in this situation. This is a little bit niche, but whenever you're trying to do a Coda 4 trio, one of the issues they regularly run into is kind of just the fact that they've got tons and tons and tons of turns on you. And there's a lot of situations where, simply put, you end up getting completely overrun and need to reposition, but don't necessarily have the means to do so. Now, there's a few ways to go about this. Typically, the answer would be something along the lines of keeping on Mother's Mercy, and essentially just going and repositioning yourself, ideally to some kind of corner somewhere next to another corner that you can, let's say, fly or teleport into. But in order to get your flying or teleportation items, you have to sacrifice one of your better armor slots. So you're going to have to sacrifice some of the really good defense you're getting off of something like the Crest of Fire or the Hoarfrost Greaves. So this leads to an interesting little conundrum here, because, and by the way, before somebody points it out, yes, I'm very well aware that the Lord has that weird quirk where they can't equip the shield, and so technically you're kind of sacrificing the defense you'd get off something like the Aegis by doing this setup. But, anyway, the kind of ideal, well, actually not really even sacrificing that much. Just for the sake of comparison here, if you were to put on the Aegis, you would have 300 less defense than by using the Ogre Blade in this instance. So, what I want to talk about here is the interesting use case of using Evanescence as a reset move for a hyper tank. So what's going on here is this guy is running a Steel Stance so that he can still counter things, and additionally First Aid so that he can regenerate, on top of having Drain Heart if and when he winds up accidentally being forced into a crit setup, or Gift of Renewal being the more kind of ideal way to handle this. So effectively, what this guy's set up for is a lot of the typical stuff you'd run into for Coda 4. So for example, he's not going to be running too many ranged attacks because he will be taking those archer finishers and he will be getting charmed, but he'd be getting charmed too many times to be able to run something like the Zoliadraw setup. So instead, he's being left with a heal 3 so that he just sits and recovers instead of going and attacking anybody. But he's specifically being left without any ranged attacks for that purpose. He's there attempting to regenerate and using Conserve MP to consistently give himself more regeneration, with most of his offense coming from the sword itself. Now, the interesting thing is, and the reason that I'm using the Ogre set here to begin with, is the fact that the Ogre set does actually affect Evanescence. It basically more or less triples its damage, which sounds impressive. It's still not very much, but it is very useful as a sort of manually activated Mother's Mercy, as it were. The reason that I mention that, we'll get into the fight here because I don't have a ton of time, but we'll go ahead and get into it here. So some interesting quirks that I've seen from going and testing this a few times is that you actually the initial thought I had was technically, if you have, let's say, you got your Ninja Vice over on one side, he's over there using Evanescence to knock himself out, and then he transfers the aggro over to Denim, who just came back on his feet, and then you kind of have this situation where you can ping-pong the aggro between the map, between your two different units intentionally instead of on accident. And then you can essentially ping-pong that over to the Stinky Set user whenever you need a little bit of time to reposition and stuff like that, you know? So what's interesting, though, is that this kind of went off the rails a little bit. In terms of the fact that it turns out that if you have either Vice or Kashua go and use this ability, they will count as dead for the purpose of the scenario, and they'll just teleport away. So it's just a little bit of a funny quirk there. But anyways, so yeah, not exactly super useful on them. So that was out the window, but it still had its use cases here as a reset move. So one of the things that you'll see is that for your main tank, typically this is going to be Denim, because why would it be anyone else? One of the problems you'll have is that he has, he's basically got a ton of options defensively, but he also, he will be overwhelmed the entire time. Like, when he's going there and he's taking on, 20 plus units with a 21 level advantage over him, like, yeah, that he's gonna end up getting slapped around a decent bit, and oftentimes it can be hard to fully recover. Because even with something like a Mother's Mercy and a full heal, like you can only carry so many full heals with you. Realistically speaking, you're probably backed into a corner, and if that like let's say something goes wrong with your setup and you're forced to run like let's say two instead of three auto cards there, you might, or maybe you're intentionally doing that for offense's sake. You might be finding yourself in a really awkward position where you can't really recover out of all of it at once. Now, essentially, what Evanescence allows in this scenario is to fully recover out of everything. Is to basically just go in and say, okay, you know what, just I'm gonna go ahead and attack, take myself out of the fight entirely, throw the aggro over to Vice, and just take a minute to, let's say, get back into whatever position you wanted to be in. Because you can't be fully immune to knockback in most situations during all of this, due to the fact that you probably won't have the slots for something like Steadfast, right? So, anyway, so it's a little bit of an oddly specific situation there, but it is very useful. So I've been going and testing this out while trying to kind of farm out the rest of the Knight Commander weapons and such. And this has been a very interesting setup. It's actually helped out quite a bit. He doesn't have the ability to fly anymore, but through something like the Jiggler gloves, he does have +2 jump, so he can still get on top of most rooftops just fine. So effectively, all he has to do is park himself nearby a rooftop tile, and he's basically good to go. So either way, that's good stuff there. As always, in this situation, we're just going to go ahead and open up with a lot of poison everywhere, just so that we can make sure to get some of their health items going. For anyone that's never tried this for Coda 4, like, again, I see stubborn folks getting really mad at poison all the time, like, oh, you gotta go attack them directly, but look, if you can shave away thousands of health with a single attack while also recovering MP, that is really valuable, dude. Like, yeah, sure, you might hit one unit with those summons, and you might maybe take out one unit. Ideally, if they've already picked up the cards, they picked up the crits, everything went well and lined up perfectly. Or, all you need is concentration to, again, basically waste 3 of their healing items at once. It's, like, the AI loves to panic heal in Coda 4. They will not wait until the health bar is low enough. They'll gladly throw that stuff out like it's the friggin', touchdown party, because it basically is their touchdown party. So yeah, just so you know, they are way more aggressive with their items here, so that's kind of why it works here. Anyway, so he's going to go ahead and continue on this way. He's just going to continue his setup, as it were, here. See if we can maybe slow anyone down. There we go. Why not? There we go. It's interesting. I'm pretty sure it's just a weird quirk of his gear and whatever else. But it's interesting just how much value he gets out of his debuffs. Like the ogre set. Bear in mind, he has not been eating mind charms or anything. This dude is basically just running the stuff that he came with. But just through the fire crest, he's more or less able to get fairly consistent 20% on those debuffs, which again, doesn't sound very much. And then you remember you're in Coda 4, so yes, it matters a lot. So anyway, we'll go ahead and throw him back here real quick. So yeah, effectively, in this particular instance, it's unlikely he'll end up getting completely rolled over, as it were. But it is interesting that, yeah, there's going to be a lot of situations where essentially you'll get a lot of value from being able to just instantly reset like that. So it is one of the very few things that can actually impact how much damage Evanescence does. As soon as he gets his 100 MP, we'll go ahead and show that off real quick. Coda 4 is going to Coda 4. This stuff is slow. It's a little funny because a lot of the kind of stereotypes that newer folks will throw onto the rest of the game will also get lumped in with. Will basically kind of come true for Coda 4 Trio. Like one of the very few times that this is actually correct. Yeah, whatever, you picked up a skill card, he's still fine. So, okay, the other interesting thing about Evanescence here. So, he's not going to use it right here. Ideally, this would be if Vice got charmed, but there is actually a way to achieve total invisibility for your party using Evanescence. So, if you have your secondary, your kind of secondary target there, so Vice in this case, so you've got your target, you've got your tank, you've got your secondary, and then you've got your invisible unit, right? So invisible is almost always going to be the caster because, you know, of course, they've got the least mobility, they get the most out of their auto skills, kind of attack-wise, so yeah, it should pretty much always be them. But as far as as far as all of this stuff is concerned, what you can do is if one of your units is charmed and one of your units is evanescenced, that basically means that the AI cannot target anybody. So the interesting quirk about how the AI can target stuff is that they're specifically told that they cannot target any unit that's charmed unless they are the last unit on the map. Okay, so interesting thing about this is that if a unit is evanescenced, they still count as if they are using the undead form of being downed. So in their particular instance, effectively what it does is it creates a situation where they're not actually alive, they're not actually dead. So basically the game doesn't really know what to do, so they're like, okay, technically there's more than one unit available on the map, so I can't go target the Stinky Set user, so they don't lose their invisibility. There's technically more than one, so I can't target the Charmed unit, so I guess we'll just sort of wander. So it's basically the only situation in the game where you can achieve the triangle strategy effect. So that's just kind of a fun little quirk of the system. It's like right there. Now that both are charmed, they'll be able to. Actually, no. Since Denim's out of being charmed, he'll go and be the main one getting targeted now. With his next round, he'll be able to get knocked down, and that's when we can take advantage of that invisibility effect. Unfortunately, obviously, yeah, you want to keep an eye out for stuff like Volak. I am talking too much and missing that whole Terenius situation. It's kind of one of the downsides of trying to use a Dark Priest for trio, just because like, you really want to make use of those autos, but then at the same time you wind up with that situation where you constantly get them feared. You know, bit of a nuisance thing. Princess doesn't run into that because they can just shake him off. But anyway, dang it, sometimes you just want your free area debuffs. But yeah, well, not to mention Princess gets a pretty big damage boost versus Tardy as well. Anyway, so in this case, she is still invisible. Vice is up there charmed. There's not really too much he'll be able to do outside of attacking Kashua. So that's actually the other quirk, that the charmed unit will still be targeting your other guy. So basically what you want to end up doing in that particular instance is you want to try to get them out of range. This is part of the reason that he's actually going for the stunning setup here. So let's go ahead and show this off. So we go ahead and we want to waste more of their healing items, right? So we go over here. He's hit by fear, so it's going to suck a little bit, and he's basically down to standard damage here, courtesy of the fear. So the fear is the other thing that can affect the damage of this thing, but we go ahead and Evanescence here. He's going to go ahead and do all of this kind of some suchery, and then Vice is going to be over there. So he's still going to be trying to attack her, because I didn't get her far away enough, but nobody else can target her. So he can attack her, she can go ahead and just use her health drain to top off whatever damage she took. And in the meantime, he's just wandering around. He can't be targeted. Denim is obviously down. He can't be targeted. And the whole two-turn quirk, I still don't know what's causing that, but there's a lot of instances where it's actually very handy, especially for Coda 4, because it really doesn't put you out of the fight for that long, but it is long enough, just long enough, to get everybody off your back, to be able to reposition, to get back into things. Again, it's a little unfortunate that neither Vice nor Kashua can make use of the ability without being considered downed for... essentially, they get instantly teleported out, so... It's a bit of a bummer that that doesn't work, but still, this is really useful for getting aggro off of Denim specifically. Like, especially in those cases where you see Barbas coming up, you know you're about to get petrified, and that is going to completely fuck your day up. So, it's time to take a little nap until the nightmare goes away. So yeah. Now, obviously, eventually you can just stat dump them hard enough that you don't have to worry about the debuffs anymore, but this is the kind of standard experience, and I would consider stat dumping a actual strategy. So, anyway, that's kind of about how that goes. So, unfortunately, she's still feared at the moment, but we will go ahead and see if we can get any decent health steals off anyone. Probably not necessarily enough. Oh yeah, I failed to explain this. The thing with Vice over there So part of the reason that he's using that Damask bow is he still gets the secondary stun effect, so he can basically roll for silence stun or poison stun with any of his arrows, but he's also got shorter range so that he doesn't necessarily attack as often. Now, again, this is a completely scuffed setup that I'm doing in the few minutes that I have until I gotta go get the kiddos to school, so it is what it is, but yeah, this is kind of the use case for something like Evanescence, that you can completely mess with the AI. Like Hilarious say, they've just gone and bottlenecked themselves over there. Vice will be out of charm in a moment. Eventually, Cashua will be out of her little debuff situation over there. She is invisible. She's got plenty of time to shake off her debuffs. But now that everything's all good to go, Denim can now go over here. He can run up completely free of debuffs. There's actually no reason for him to take that card. I just want him to take that tile. He's going to re-up his renewal here, and then he's just going to keep on going on. So as long as you do your standard auto card setup for your tank here, he's functionally immortal with the option to turn off the aggro whenever the debuffs are getting scary, right? So either way, that's kind of about that. You know, obviously this is a whole lot of resources being thrown at a very oddly specific setup. But either way, just another kind of tool in the tool belt, so to speak. Mother's Mercy will be a hell of a lot easier of a way of doing this most of the time, to be blunt. But you know what? Whatever. This is fun too. Sometimes you want to be able to self-destruct and get everybody off your back. All right. Anyways, I gotta get going. I think that's all there is to cover about Evanescence. Like we're 3 videos deep into this particular rabbit hole at this point, but I think we've probably covered it at this point. All right, so y'all take care, have yourselves a good one, and yeah, I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.